All right, everybody. It's 4 o'clock on Monday. Welcome to our update. Today is going to be primarily focused on where we are in COVID, and it starts with us as a state and as a people passing another grim milestone. Today, we surpassed more than 10,000 Kentuckians who have lost their lives due to COVID, now at 10,019 Kentuckians lost. My faith teaches me that each of these individual is a child of God, irreplaceable to their family and to their community. That every time we lose someone, especially this many people, it tears at the fabric of who we are. You know, if we could back up, back out, and look at what it means to lose 10,000 people, it is nothing short of tragic. COVID has been the number 3 killer of Kentuckians, number 3 cause of death, both last year and thus far this year. We as a Commonwealth are hurting, and everybody has lost someone now. There's going to be a lot of grief that we're going to have to process that I think many of us, and I don't say many of you, I say many of us, are pushing down as we put our head down and push through the end, what we hope is the end of this pandemic. But I think it's important that we grieve along the way too, that we recognize those that have been lost and the families that are struggling with that loss. So to honor these Kentuckians and those mourning their loss, we're going to hold a memorial service this Sunday, November 14th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. During this memorial, we're going to officially announce the artist commissioned to commemorate a monument in honor of those lost and the sacrifices that Kentuckians have experienced during this once-in-a-lifetime pandemic. The Team Kentucky COVID Memorial, something that is going to be permanently at this Capitol, honoring these 10,000 lost Kentuckians and also honoring everyone else's sacrifice, the heroic deeds of our healthcare workers and so many others. It's going to be at Memorial Monument Park on the state Capitol grounds. When you're driving up at the Capitol, it is just to the right. It's going to serve as a reminder to future generations of a time that we lost Kentuckians to a war unlike any that we had experienced, losing more Kentuckians in a very short period of time than in any 2 or maybe even 3 wars in our history combined. The Team Kentucky COVID-19 Memorial Artist was selected through a process where an advisory panel of first responders, healthcare heroes, and family members of those who lost weighed in on what a design means to them. So it's hard to say we're looking forward to Sunday, but it's an important day to help us all process some grief that we've been through, to pray for both the lost and the living, and also to unveil what a permanent reminder will be to help us generations to come, whether that's sadly a parent taking a child to a memorial to talk about a lost parent or a lost grandparent, whether it's a class of nursing students that have come to talk about what that period was like and what your calling is at the most difficult time. It's going to serve as a reminder to one of the most historic periods in any of our lives. It's going to be outside, so people are invited to attend. But everybody can also watch the memorial live this Sunday at 1 p.m. through my Facebook and YouTube pages. So like we talked about, now passing 10,000 deaths, 10,019. I'm going to go through the last 3 days and numbers of cases, etc. And then we're going to get to the charts. What you'll see is the decline in cases is slowing significantly. We did have fewer cases this last week than the week before. Our positivity rate is actually up a little bit now. certainly we think that suggested is plateauing, but it being up a little bit, and we'll talk about this in a minute, may also be due to the number of people getting tested going down. So Saturday's numbers, 1,158 new cases of COVID-19, 35 new deaths. Remember, these deaths also include the death certificates that come in. So just about every death that we've announced has really been about a 3-week period of the day that it's announced. Some of these are a couple of months, even 3 months, 4 months ago. They're all Delta. But again, these are ones coming through that second process that we use. And all 3 days include really young people. So Saturday's was a 47-year-old man from Breathitt County who died on Halloween, a 46-year-old woman from Hardin County, and a 36-year-old man from Nelson County. Sunday, 585 new cases, 19 new deaths. They included a 29-year-old woman from Lincoln County who died in October. And then today, 642 new cases, 26 new deaths. They include a 30-year-old woman from Fayette County. I'm going to turn 44 later this month. A 44-year-old man from Hardin County, a 19-year-old woman from Perry County, and a 22-year-old woman from Rockcastle County. Can you remember a day that we had somebody in their teens, in their 20s, in their 30s, in their 40s? We also have a 47-year-old man from Clay County, all in the same day. Remember, this thing is deadly. Please get vaccinated and do what you need to do to protect yourself. Today's positivity rate, 5.44%. Remember, we were right at 5, so it's up about a half point. We've conducted over 10 million tests since the beginning of this virus in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, 10,042,549. That's really incredible, given that this test didn't exist before COVID. We had to build out the testing network. We've really only been in this 19 months, and now you can get a test almost anywhere, anytime. 687 Kentuckians currently hospitalized for COVID, 196 in the ICU, 121 on a ventilator. Now let's look at the trends. Let's look at the stair stepper chart. So if you want to take the optimistic approach today, this last week was lower than the week before, which means we have been decreasing week over week over week, and that is a good trend. But remember, we both look at, are we increasing or decreasing? And then we look at how quickly we are increasing or decreasing. The great thing about this most recent decrease is we were decreasing very quickly. That is no longer the case. We'd normally been, at least 1,000, sometimes 2,000 plus cases less during the decline week over week. This is about 675 is the delta between last week and the week before, the smallest that it has been in the entire decline. So with the positivity rate inching up a little bit, again, that could really be a plateau. With the decrease slowing, it again suggests to me that we are headed towards a plateau. I would just encourage people. And there's some encouraging news on vaccinations here in a minute, to keep doing things to protect yourself, because if we plateau here, we're higher than we should be, and we're higher than day to day we ought to want to sustain. We'll continue to lose people at preventable deaths at a higher rate if we stay here than is acceptable. So let's commit to get the job done and keep pushing. So the next chart, which is the positivity chart, again, says the same thing. Look, after week over week over week of decline, this is an increase last week versus the week before. So I don't know if I ought to say there ought to be a wake-up call now, because the current trend has been really good. But we need to be cautious. We need to be humble. Now, listen, this virus has mutated. It has surprised everybody. The Delta variant is so aggressive. We need to just remember that if we don't get the job done, we lose more of our people. And on a day where we passed 10,000, it ought to push us to do better. And I'd just say, if you've had those green lights out the whole time, thank you. Keep them out. If you put them away for a little while, at least as we pass this 10,000 mark, why don't you take them out and why don't you put them up at least through Sunday? We're going to keep lighting the Capitol Dome up green, which we do every night. So anybody who is certainly in this area or is watching this Capitol knows that our compassion continues. We will not have compassion fatigue, that every family, even if they are the most recent that has lost someone, deserves our full compassion. And not to say, well, we got tired when we lost 5,000 people. That family needs us as much as any other, maybe even more, given that the deaths now are so preventable. All right, we'll look at our trend in inpatient census for Kentucky hospitals. Still going down, and this is good. Remember, last week I was a little worried whether or not we were starting to slow. You know, the curve, you know, the rate of the decline is a little bit less, but this one is still significantly declining. We want to watch it, and it would be unrealistic to think it would go down at the same significant slope that it was earlier, but still continuing to decrease. I was a little more worried about this one, and we got to watch it next week and the week after. But hospitalizations are down compared to last week, which is great news. Same thing for the ICU, right? So this is good. We want it to continue. There were some signs that it might level off, but this is still continuing faster. But you know, if there is a concern, it's that the positivity rate is the leading indicator, and that these numbers are the lagging indicators. So again, though, we're thankful for this decrease. And then if you look at the ventilator census, this one is important. It'll be interesting moving into the future as treatments get better, because we are getting better at treating this. How many people are going to need to be on a ventilator? But take a look at this, and this is why we have to be humble and respect the power of what this virus can do and be prepared for it. So you got the Alpha variant, which is the first spike. Actually, you have the original strain, which is that first spike. And remember, just that spike in New York would have looked like the one to the right, or even the third one, and what it was able to do, because we had no treatment at that time. When the Alpha hit, we had better treatments, right? We had different drugs that worked. The Delta, we had even more, right? We had the infusions. We've had new ways of providing oxygen and helping others, but still, look at how many people needed a ventilator, even with all of those other treatments that are available. This ought to tell you that, yes, while our treatments are getting better, you don't want to have them, because you don't know how strong the next variant might be. You want to get vaccinated and not be a part of that spike at all. And you want to get your booster so you keep your immunity up, so you're not one of those breakthrough cases that we are seeing with waning immunity. Healthcare capacity report. Good news. Over the past 7 days, hospitalizations have decreased 12%. 162 adult ICU beds available. A lot of that is staffing. And remember, some hospitals that had to create new ICU beds are able to transition them back now to ORs or other services. Lowest number of hospitals with critical staffing shortages in a long time, 44. We are under 50%. That is a good sign. And my favorite news of the day, COVID-19 vaccines for 5 to 11-year-olds. So now that the CDC has officially recommended the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine for children ages 5 to 11, Kentucky parents and caregivers are now able to book an appointment for their children. In fact, Brittany and I just arranged for Lila to receive her vaccine today. I've waited for this day for a long time, and she's still going to have to get the second one. She's waited for this day. I can't tell you how relieved I am as a parent. How at different times concerned I've been about what am I doing about my exposure that I could bring home to her, worried about school, worried about everything, right? Worried about my child. So this is special. And I hope you can tell how much I care about her and her brother. This is a safe vaccine that is going to give her and would give your kids extra protection. And as a good sign, both nationally and while today is the first big rollout day in Kentucky, we're seeing demand that I think is higher than many expected early. I think they're describing it as brisk, which sounds like the weather nationally, but here it appears that two exciting things are happening. Number one, parents really want to get their kids vaccinated in this age group. And two, when they try to get an appointment and it says all the appointments are booked, instead of being mad, they're happy because it shows that other people are getting vaccinated, which we all want. So kind of interesting things going on there. You can go to vaccines.gov to find a place that can give this, remember, specific vaccine packaged differently for kids that is a lesser amount than adults. So go to vaccines.gov and click on Find COVID-19 Vaccines. From there, you can sort by zip code and vaccine options. This includes the option in the filter of the Pfizer vaccine specifically for children 5 to 11. That's the one you need. If you sign your kid up for a different one and you show up, they will not be able to give them that other one. And if you can find the graphic of the difference between the two, the adult, there it is. So again, this should give you comfort, and it's information that as you show up you can make 100% sure. The purple is for adults, right? They are packaging the one for 5 to 11 entirely differently to make sure that every child in that age group gets the right amount. That is in the orange. So, Pfizer vaccines found to be over 90% effective at preventing COVID-19 for 5 to 11-year-olds. And the vaccine plays an important role in keeping our families safe. It's safer when my daughter hugs my parents. It protects everyone they interact with. It ensures that they can be in school, that she can go to her play practice, which they had to push off for so long. It can give them so much of their world back. And if we can all just talk to, encourage, convince those that we love to get this vaccine, it can give us all of our world back. All right, in good news, more vaccinations over the weekend than we've seen in a couple of weeks, 10,388. And you might say, yeah, but that's because we just opened up this new group that can get vaccinated. Nope, it wasn't available to all that many over the weekend. So less than 10% of that number were 5 to 11-year-olds. So this is a significant number of folks coming in to get the vaccine that fall into other groups. So we'll show the demographic and we'll add 5 to 11. I'm going to tell you ahead of time, that number right now is 0% because it's only really been available one day that just a few were giving out. But I know of at least 4 school systems that are having clinics today, many more this week. So total Kentuckians vaccinated. This is a big one, up a point, which we really wanted. If we can, there we go, 58%. Remember, we had to redo these numbers because of the double submissions of one vendor. But every time we go up a point of total Kentuckians vaccinated, that is a big deal. Now 58% of all people living in the Commonwealth, and that includes kids under 5 that can't get the vaccine, are now vaccinated. We want to push that up, but every point is one to celebrate. Total 5 years and older. So remember, this used to be 12 and up. So this is going to change this number because there are now 380 something thousand more people in it. 61%. So that means 61% of everybody who's eligible to get the shot in Kentucky has gotten at least one shot of hope. And then number the same for 18 years and older. These are people who can make their own healthcare decisions, 70%. So, again, you hear a lot about back and forth or this and that. 70% of all Kentuckians who can make their own decision have decided this is a pretty good decision, and people continue to get vaccinated every day. Yes, there is how do we do better? There's frustration with maybe not having more people vaccinated. But that 70% is a number that, anybody running for office, anybody concerned about an issue, anybody in marketing something would really love and pray to hit. All right, another good news today. 75 years and up, the most vulnerable among us, up a point to 89%. We also ought to celebrate every time that goes up. 65 to 74, still at 92%, or as my parents would say, that's barely an A. 50 to 64, up a point, 76%. 40 to 49, stuck at 66%. 25 to 39, no change, 56%. 18 to 24, 49%. 16 to 17, up 1, that's 47%. And as we go forward, we may combine some of these. Remember, we created them because of who was eligible and who wasn't, and then who could make their own healthcare decisions and who could not. 12 to 15-year-olds, up a point, long way to go. But that's my son Will's demographic, so good for them. And this is the very first time, 5 to 11-year-olds. I think there is 900 and something, maybe 911 5 to 11-year-olds that have already gotten the vaccine. That number is going to go way up today and tomorrow. So by Thursday, we'll have an idea of how many have signed up in that brief period of time. Booster shots. We're continuing to encourage Kentuckians eligible to go out and get their booster shots. Just to give you an idea, remember, you can get your booster if you're 65 and older. You can get a booster if you took J&J, no matter what, and go get it as fast as you can. You can get a booster if you have an underlying health condition, and you can get a booster if you have a job that you interact with a lot of people. Now, folks, I think there was a study that suggests that's 80% of everybody. If you qualify under any of those, go get a booster. To give you just an idea, though, about how many people just easily qualify, just take 65 and up. There's 682,513 Kentuckians in that demographic, according to the most recent census. So plenty of people qualify. Currently, number of Kentuckians that have received a booster, that means fully vaccinated and received a booster, 345,887. We'd like to see that number increase, but remember, not everybody is 6 months after their second shot, which you need to be. So again, get a booster. Waning immunity is real, and we believe that we can lessen those that we would lose to a breakthrough infection if you get your booster. So any of those things that make you vulnerable, more vulnerable to COVID, more vulnerable to catching it, having a job with a lot of people, more vulnerable to a negative outcome, underlying health conditions, age, go get that booster. It will get your immunity back up, and I believe it will be as important as the new people we get vaccinated with whatever comes next. I mean, we know how to supercharge our immunity. That's whether you want to talk about it defense or offense in this battle against COVID. It's how we get stronger. All right, the one piece of news that is not COVID today, bipartisan infrastructure bill that passed on Friday. It is exciting. It is going to provide major investments throughout Kentucky. It's going to help public safety, bridges, and roads that badly needed repaired, I believe, provided that we ultimately get a grant from the major projects pool. It means we're going to get that Brent Spence Bridge done, which we are ready for it. $600+ million in water and wastewater, and we've seen how important these projects are. how necessary through how we've used our American Rescue Plan Act funds. I mean, this plus the American Rescue Plan Act not only are once in a generation investments, but they're good investments. When we invest in our infrastructure, we unlock potential. We also reduce costs in the future. We make ourselves more resilient against the types of natural disasters we see far too often. We make it safer when we put our kids in the car and send them to school or take them to church. It helps us ultimately, I believe, to be more competitive worldwide, and it's going to help ensure that we are still the world economic leader, and this is one of the ways that we are going to get there. So Kentucky is going to receive more than $4.7 billion over 5 years to repair roads and bridges and create high quality, good paying jobs for Kentuckians. Again, the fund that we're going to be able to apply for under the Brent Spence Bridge is for economically significant bridges and infrastructure projects. If we are to get a substantial award from there, I believe that we can do this whole project without tolls. That is my goal. That is our goal. And this gives us a chance to do what many thought was previously impossible. And we are going to put in that application, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that there are different ways we can take whatever remaining share in Kentucky there is and make this work. Drinking water, $8.2 billion in additional funding to maintain levels of performance and provide new drinking water, $647 million to improve infrastructure. High-speed internet is in there, $100 million to provide broadband coverage. Connectivity fund, 1.4 million Kentuckians are going to be able to share in dollars to help afford that broadband. Public transportation, $391 million for Kentucky. Airports, $204 million. That's a big deal. We got a couple of big airports. We're going to be in Paducah, I think, this week for their new terminal. But our regional airports allow a CEO of any company to be able to fly in and be within 20 minutes of a facility that we have in Kentucky. It's special. And electric vehicle charging, $69 million to help build out that network. And resiliency, $19 million to protect against wildfires, $18 million against cyber attacks. You know, we got an economy on fire. This is going to ensure that we grasp our destiny as a leader and never a follower again. We're going to be wise in how we do this. We're going to spend it on the right projects. We're going to work across party lines and on every level of government and with the private sector. We've already said where the economy is going. This, I believe, is a moment that we're going to look back at 30 years from now. So taking these dollars, the American Rescue Plan Act dollars, the healthiest budget that we have ever had, and doing this right can cement us at the top of the food chain as one of the economic leaders in this country. That's something we have all been hungry for a long time. Tired of people looking down their nose at us. Tired of people thinking we're a flyover state. We are now the destination. Our time is here. Our future is now. Our job is to go get it. So with that, today I'm joined by only one in-person journalist, and everybody knows it's Tom Latek. So Tom, let's start with you, and then we got about 5 on the phone.
Does that mean I get to ask more than one question then, since I'm the only one?
You know, I knew you'd try to negotiate for more.
Okay.
All right, shoot.
Okay. First of all, this would be a follow-up to a question I asked you last week, and this is about snowplow operators, since 11 states are in dire straits.
Yeah.
Missouri, Indiana, Illinois, Ohio, among them. How's Kentucky stack up with that? And I noticed online, looking at the Secretary of State's website, that I have not seen a recent price gouging nor pharmaceutical waiver executive order since like the first week of September. What's the status on that?
Well, the price gouging state of emergency, we had been regularly communicating with the Attorney General's office. We issued that one time after time after time. We would ask for updates, and then ask what their recommendation is. Eventually it came back, no recommendation. And given that, we thought at this point, unless we are made aware of something, that it was time to let that one expire. I gave you the answer on snowplows, that I did not think we had an issue, and no one from the transportation cabinet has called me to suggest my answer was anything other than correct, but I will check on that one again. I would hope that I would know by now. But sometimes that's the way state government works. Karen Czar, WUKY.
Hi, Governor. Hello, Virginia. Thank you for taking my question. As you said, and then so many of us are hoping that this is ending, hopefully, but other countries are again seeing a surge because of Delta. The reality is your hands are now tied. What conversations are you having with legislators about possible plans if we do see another surge or stay at a very high plateau? Thank you.
So admittedly, I'm not having many COVID conversations with legislators at the moment. Attempting to have the hero pay, which is directly related to COVID, and certainly the minority is communicating with me on that. And I think we'll need to have those conversations. Sometimes having them at periods where there is greater concern might give us greater opportunity. I do believe there are things that we can do, and we are doing at the moment. The number one things I think we can do to prevent what we're seeing in some other areas is vaccinations, but it's also the way we're going about it. The UK worked hard on vaccinating, but didn't vaccinate their kids, but did do a little bit better on the booster side, and you saw what happened there. We have some lessons learned from Israel. I think what it teaches us is we've got to be focused on multiple things. Number one, new vaccinations. Number two, boosters. And if we don't do them both well, we're vulnerable at different ends. I am concerned, though, that many school districts are going mask optional before we are out of the orange, or sometimes even in the red. There is no place that respiratory type viruses spread more than schools. Look back at what we used to do with the flu and how we would address it. I don't want my kids wearing a mask, but I want them to wear a mask if it means they're in school every single day and we defeat COVID once and for all. So I know there will be more conversations as we move in that direction. I really hope the politics, especially the national politics, don't push down, and we're able to have reasonable conversations and make reasonable decisions. Al Cross, Kentucky Health News.
Thank you, Governor. In regard to the school question, are you all keeping track of school masking policies as they evolve? And if not, why not? And if you are, what do your figures show? And do you have any sense of the state of school masking around the state?
Yeah, what we've mainly been following are those, whether it's the School Board Association or Al, I think you guys are doing this too, of how it's being compiled with what the legislature passed. Obviously, it creates difficulty on us on any enforcement, but haven't been tracking it directly. Now, KDE may, and if so, we'll make inquiries there. But what I'm seeing is a couple who have entered the orange have made the change. Others are considering it, but still others are holding tight. Again, I don't necessarily think we're going to need universal masking through the entire school year, but also think about, we know what holidays can do, the amount of gatherings, and sadly what we saw in what we would call the alpha surge. certainly keeping universal masking at least a couple weeks past New Year's in schools would tamp down the spread that we would see after holidays and protect a lot of people. Jose Donis from Aldea in America. Okay. Debbie Yetter, Courier Journal.
Governor, with the budget presumably looking better, do you have any thoughts for the legislative session coming up in 22 about money, additional funding for areas in fairly acute needs such as social services and possibly education?
Absolutely. I've pushed for educator raises every year I've been governor, and I intend to do so. They were underpaid before COVID. They have had to go through difficult times and have shown incredible heroism. And I think we ought to be lifting them up. The state legislature absolutely significantly cut the compensation package of new educators by eliminating the best benefit by far that not only got people into education, but retained them, right? We talk about workforce retention all the time now. You know, that pension for teachers kept them in for 30 plus years. And so right now, starting teachers have never been paid less when you look at overall compensation. Social workers, you're going to see the same, but I plan on doing two things. Number one, we got to raise their pay. Number two, we've got to budget to fill more slots. It doesn't mean that we will fill them all in this next year, but they need to know that they are appreciated and that more help will be on the way, because I believe that it is both compensation plus caseload. Now, we also want to look at things that help in retention, perhaps a loan forgiveness program for every year that you're working for the state. Again, that is a retention measure that we don't have for new hires now that, again, the pension system has been changed. So I get why some of those changes were made at different times, except the teacher piece, which I'm entirely against. And I think that new teachers should be in that full pension system. But, you know, we're seeing right now in a competitive workforce why those pension systems were created. And if they had been funded appropriately over time, and I understand that there are some times of difficulty that it was hard to, then I don't think we'd be looking at it the same way. And, you know, we've got an opportunity now over time, paying off that mortgage to get those systems healthy. But yes, we absolutely have to do better by our social workers. Our neglected kids, those that are in need, are depending on it. And now last, Corinne Boyer from WEKU.
Hi, Governor. When job announcements are made and there's that wage range that's included, are companies required to file any paperwork or anything with the state showing that they'll pay the wages that are publicly announced? Thank you.
Yes, the application that you put into KEDFA, that's the board that approves the incentives, includes overall investment, includes number of jobs, that includes the wage range. And that's all what goes into how the incentive package is calculated. And then they have to hit certain marks to receive the full incentive package over time. We can get you a full written explanation of that, but the answer is yes. And if everybody doesn't always hit every full target, but the beauty of our incentives is that there aren't upfront payments in the regular incentive program, and it's truly performance. And remember, while yes, from that new job, we're not getting every or new company, every tax we would be getting without the incentives. They weren't in Kentucky before, or they hadn't expanded. And so each of these projects increases the size of the pie, even if we don't get the full amount of that increase each year until the incentive package ends. But we can get you all that in writing too. So just quickly, a couple of written questions. A bunch on the bridge. You know, we're going to need to see the timing process that comes out on the application for the major projects, as well as typically there's guidance that follows the passage of these. It's a question of, can the bridge project be done without bonding? It depends on how much is left on our end and on Ohio's end over how many years and the budget situation of each. It also depends on a decision that ultimately we'll sit down and talk to the state legislature on what's the cost of bonding at any given point. Sometimes it makes sense on where the market is. Sometimes it makes the project more expensive than would be worth it. So do I think we could do it without bonding? If we get the amount from the special projects fund, then yes, I think that may be possible. It may require us to move some dollars from budget reserve trust fund or from general fund, but that's something I'd be willing to do depending on the amount. Timetable for the project, let me get that. I've heard different timetables. Would the new bridge replace the Brent Spence Bridge? No. The project that is now being pursued by Kentucky and Ohio creates a companion bridge that will hopefully lessen the amount of disruptions that will be going on and also allow for more traffic to be able to go over them. Well, less traffic if you're driving in it, but more vehicles to be able to move through it at a good pace over time. We know that we only want to increase as a logistics hub, so we want to have that capacity. Would be the federal state funding split and the split between Kentucky and Ohio? That'll depend on what we get out of the fund we apply for. Of the $4.6 billion Kentucky will get from the infrastructure deal, how much would I like to see go towards the bridge? Again, it's got to start with the application. But I believe whether it's, money is fungible, right, between what we'll get in that and what's in our current budget. So I want to do what it takes. I want to get this thing done. We've talked about it for decades. This is our best opportunity to do it. I want to be the governor that gets this done. What was once viewed as impossible suddenly now appears to be very possible. And I am very hopeful. It's critical for both Kentucky and Ohio. And, my take is let's absolutely get it done. At the same time, I'm committed to a lot of other projects that are out there. The Mountain Parkway, we're going to get that 4-lane all the way. The I-69 bridge, we're going to get built too. And what's exciting is the economy right now. We're going to work to get it all done. All right. Thank you, everybody.